Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to Trader Hotline. Make sure to go ahead and dial in, pick up the phone, and start dialing. 239-372-9990. Call in. Let us know what questions you may have. Let us know what you want to discuss. Anything that can help you guys. Here to help for the next hour. Here to answer any questions. Get on the phone with me. One-on-one conversation. There's no better way to be learning than that, I'd say. This episode of Trader Hotline is sponsored by Insiders Coffee Co. I actually considered having an espresso before this one, but I do want to sleep tonight. So, no espresso for me tonight, but definitely fuels the pre-market. That's for sure. We got Game Boy Tommy. What's up, Game Boy? Chef, what's up, man? Kimmel, Taps, GT, Swingmaster, Barrage. What's up, guys? We do have one call in already, but we're going to need more. And if we don't get more, then I told Nick we're shutting it down. So make sure to call in. Make sure to let us know if you have any questions tonight. We'll give it a few minutes. Let some people pile in. How was everyone's trading day? How was everyone's trading day? Interesting day out there. Let's go ahead and pull up TradingView, actually. I think it'd be easier to use TradingView for this application, like tonight. We'll go ahead and get that set up real quick. So let's get that perfectly set up here. Bam, bam, and bam. Oh, hold on. Move that over a little bit. There we go. So NASDAQ futures today, very nice. Nice downside move. Our key levels, this was the best trade of the day by a mile. Best trade of the day today on the NASDAQ futures by a mile right here. Right on that break and retest of our key supply level. We had this level heading into the day. This was the this was a major 4-hour low. If we go out to this 4-hour, you had some really major 4-hour. Where am I? There I am. Jeez, what the hell happened here? There we go. We had this major 4-hour level here. Major 4-hour highs. Right here, right here, right here. Major 4-hour highs. Major 4-hour attempt to hold there. And then today, just a sexy retest rejection. Anyone catch that one today? Did anyone catch that NASDAQ short today? That was a really good one. Bam. Bam. Break, retest, rejection. A+. A+, I'd say. Also, that was the Friday low of day. And the Friday, it was right near that Friday closing area. Right in here. In this high right here. Bam, bam. Break, retest, short. Beautiful. I wish I was around for it. I wish that didn't happen at 145. But really nice. Today, this morning, gap fill heading into the day. The thesis was to be cautious of the gap fill. That's exactly what we got. We gap filled today. We go to the SPY. Let's go to the SPY. We'll show you guys the gap fill that occurred. So we can see actually the QQQ filled it first and PDL. Didn't quite fill it all the way until down here, but we hit previous day low pretty early on, held that previous day low, popped back up into that rejection point, which was gorgeous. This low right here, failing as a rejection point today, which was so good, turning this previous low into rejections intraday and driving that downside. So an awesome day in terms of continuation. Took a little bit longer than I'd want, right? I'm typically out of here by 12, 1 o'clock is definitely the latest I'm on the charts. So this is my meat. This is where I take my opportunities. The rest of the day, we got a lot of things that I got to get done. So I can't sit around all day and trade, but today's one of those days where you say, hey, I wish I did sit around and trade all day, but that's an outlier. That's not always the case. And nine times out of 10, just something to know for you guys, 9 times out of 10, if you stick around and you stick on the charts 9 times out of 10, that does not become a good day. 9 times out of 10, it ends up you being on tilt, right? And so some days you wish you stuck around, but most of the days you wish you didn't stick around. And so, again, trading is a game of statistics. Trading is a game of probabilities. And I think we all know that after that core trading time around 11, 12, maybe 1 p.m. Eastern, these statistics are definitely down in our favor. And so that is always something to remember. You're always going to get outliers like today where you say, hey, I wish I stuck around, but remember the big picture. Remember that big picture, always. S&P 500 also rejected that exact level as well. Really nice lows, failures, bam, bam, beautiful rejections, and driving downside continuation. So not half bad. I think MU was the weakest name of the day. This thing got really destroyed today. Really weak MU. It has been a great fade since the high. And maybe even more to come. MU probably a top watch tomorrow. But, all right, 8:05. We got 75 people here. Appreciate you guys being here. If you could, press that like button. Nick, you're going to be live, Nick, so make sure you remember that. And second off, Nick, how are you looking? Nick, maybe listening to some calls, possibly. Let me make sure I'm all set up to take some calls here. So bear with me 1 second, guys. Longed for $1,100. Nice, man. Very nice. Beautiful day. Can't complain about that. Okay, we're good on that. Let's make sure that's good. Okay, good there. You there, Nick?
Hey, Ben.
Hey, Nick, you're live.
I'm live. Sorry, I was on the phone with someone. So,
No worries.
all right, we got you may know him, D Mill
I
from
know
the
D.
Discord.
Oh yeah.
He's got a question on how to avoid strategy hopping.
Oh, that's a good question. I like that question.
So he just wants some help with that.
Is
So if
hopping
you're ready,
1P? No, that's 1P is hoping.
two two piece.
Thank you. All right, let's do it.
All right, I'll tap him in.
Yeah, I like this question. How to avoid strategy hopping? What's the Colombian go? What up, traders? What's up, man? Nico, what's up, brother? All right, we got D Mill coming in. Hello. Hold on.
Hey, man.
Oh, there you are. I hear you.
Yeah.
What's up, man?
Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. How you doing? This is D Mill from the Discord chat.
Oh, trust me, I remember every username there is. It's engraved in my head. Don't you worry.
Yeah, I've heard you say that before. So yeah, I was pretty sure you know. I mean, I don't comment a lot in the group, but I think I've been in the group with you now for just over 3 years. So
That's crazy, huh? 3 years.
yeah.
Well, that means that you're getting something out of it, no?
Oh, for sure. No, I've learned a lot. You were one of the very first traders I found on YouTube, and I mean, I looked at probably all your videos early on, just learning everything that I could, and yeah. I mean, just learned a lot of the basics, and then the more I watched the morning live streams and everything, it just picked up a ton of knowledge from you. So I appreciate that.
You got it. What do you got for me today?
Over the years in learning, your strategy and with the proliferation of all the traders that are out there and all the different strategies, especially early on, I was trying to absorb everything I could, right?
Yep.
And I found a lot that I liked, and tried some of them, and kind of where I'm at now is, I can't seem to stick with one long enough to really get good at it. I
Right.
like a handful of strategies. And maybe what it is that when one doesn't work one day, I'm like, I better switch, that kind of thing. So,
Yep. It's a strategy hopping, basically.
Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah.
And so you're just trying to figure out what is it that, how to avoid it, or how to, I guess the question would be, what do you have to do to try to lock in on one of them?
Yeah, basically, is it just simply a matter of just deciding and then just, tuning out everything else and giving that strategy time maybe and and just only focusing on that and realizing that, not every day that strategy is going to just be a killer strategy or killer execution or killer setup for that strategy,
Right. So I think the first thing to think about is, strategy is sort of a broad word, right? We say like, oh, this is my strategy, right? So like it's very broad, and we have to sort of niche that down. We have to understand what are the pieces of that strategy? What are the pieces of what we're looking for, right? So for example, for me, the break and retest. The break and retest is just an entry model. I guess if you would break down strategy down to another layer, you would break it down to, okay, break and retest is an entry model. And an entry model is what am I looking for to take an actual entry point, right? So what is it that I'm actually looking for to actually enter a position? Now, that doesn't, there's more to a strategy than, let's say, the entry model. So, for me, what else is entailed in my strategy? Well, key levels, right? Key levels is part of the strategy umbrella. So I'm using, focusing on key levels to create a thesis for my day and to decide where I want to look for the break and retest, right? So the location of my entry model is at my key levels. And that is all sort of an umbrella under the strategy, right? And then also on top of that, it's like, okay, what else is part of the strategy? Well, I'm looking for maybe, VWAPs. So, I'm looking at a VWAP intraday. Maybe I want to see a reclaim or a hold of VWAP, that maybe combines with the key level that then shows me a break and retest of that key level and the VWAP. And I'm seeing all those things sort of come together to then be confident for, executing a trade. So I think there's a lot of parts to it. It's like, hey, this is my strategy, but what is sort of, when you tree down that strategy into, 3 different sections, what are those 3 things, or, what are those confluences that you need to then take your position? So I think that changes for a lot of people. Some people say, hey, part of my strategy is not longing if we're below VWAP. So, hey, if there's a break and retest, but it's below VWAP, that's still not an entry point for me. Or, I don't want to short if we're above that, right? Or, for example, today, another one, your strategy could be, hey, I don't like to long if there's a gap up, right? So we had a gap up today on the market. And if your strategy says, hey, if we're gapped up, I'm not longing until a gap gets filled, because I don't want to be left high and dry being long at the high when everything starts gap filling. So those are all, like, I guess you could say strategy, like you're part of your strategy, you're part of your thesis coming into the day. And I think it's just a matter of refining all of those sort of key things that need to occur for you to be fully comfortable and then executing that trade. Now, when you refer to, there's traders out there and, an alarming increasing rate of like ICT concepts and all that stuff. And, to be honest, D, I never really went down that road. I think, that part of me is I found what I like to look for before that even really got very popular, I would say. I was sort of like already set in my ways before, before I was profitable as a trader using and looking for what I was using before that was even like something I even heard about, to be honest. When I was learning to trade, I didn't even know what this was. I didn't hear about ICT or all these, futures type systems that people are looking for, and all these different, entry models, which are their entry models. This just never really was something I came across. So, I would be a hard person to ask or answer that question is like, are those better? That would be something that I think every individual trader has to go through and test. And I think the biggest thing that I would say, D, is that it needs to align with you, right? Like, it needs to make sense to you, and it can't be like impossibly confusing. If it's really confusing to figure out and it takes you like months to even understand what's being looked for, then I think it's something that is probably just not really gelling with your mindset or your personality. The break and retest for me just sort of clicks, right? It makes sense. It's something I can follow. It's something that keeps me disciplined. It's something that gives me structure to the day. It's something that gives me, confidence to take a position. So I think the biggest thing, D, is like you can't keep going down different roads because you'll never find confidence in one thing, right? So, like a good saying is, I'd rather be a master of one than a jack of all trades. So, I'm sure you've heard jack of all trades. You can't be a jack of all trades in trading. It's not possible. You'd trade at every millisecond because everything would show up at all the time. So you're trying to take everything that's, hey, I like longing VWAP. Then there's a break and retest. Then there's a order flow low volume node. Then there's also a fair value gap here. So before you know it, you've taken 10 trades in the day using 10 different systems and strategies. So go ahead.
Well, as I said, and then it becomes difficult to concentrate on any one of them.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
I mean, I've had scenarios where I've had, several screens going, and I'm watching this on here, and then I open up this other screen. It's like, okay, now I'm watching for that, and then I'm, all at the same time, and I mean, obviously, I realized, like, wait a minute, this is crazy. I can't be watching for 4 different types of trades at one time.
Exactly.
And what you said about being comfortable with one, that I really did start to figure that out on my own a while back, because I realized trying some of these, it's like, this just doesn't feel comfortable, you know, and the simplicity is another big one too. And so
you have to become comfortable with what you're looking for. You have to have that. You have to be able to press your mouse with confidence, right? If you don't have the confidence to press your mouse, if it's sort of like an iffy, I don't know, maybe this is something that, I'm looking for, you're sort of doomed from the start. So you definitely need to lock in. I think what you have to do moving forward, D, the best advice I could give you is find one that you like, right? Let's say it's the break and retest. Let's say you want to look for nothing but break and retest. And let's go even more deep, right? Break and retest a previous day high, or break and retest a previous day low, right? That was what the masterclass we had was all about. So let's say, hey, I'm only looking for break and retest a previous day low. Well, if we're not above the previous day low or below, or if we're not below the previous day low or above the previous day high, then I'm not going to take a trade within yesterday's range, right? That could be something you could say. And so, today's previous day low, and I know this is we're cherry picking an example here, but let's just go ahead and take it for an example. But here on the NASDAQ, right, like today's previous day low yesterday was Friday lows. This was, right, your break and retest trade. So this was your break and retest of the Friday's lows right here on the NASDAQ futures right here, creating a great opportunity. Now, that's not always going to happen. We know that. Nothing works all the time. Break and retest doesn't always work or even show up on an intraday. But if you said to yourself, I'm only looking for one thing and one thing only today, then, I think you find a way to build more confidence around it. I think you become more specific and more, you become more, what's the word? You're just sort of more focused and more disciplined on looking for that one thing, which in result should help you a lot, right? It'll stop you from over trading. It'll stop you from taking every trade that's possible. And it'll probably result in a lesser amount of trades, but actually higher quality trades. And that doesn't mean that it has to be the break and retest. I think you have to go down one road. I've committed down the road of my strategy, right? And that's really the only way that I would say I've gotten to where I've gotten, right? Like, the only reason I've become profitable and successful in what I'm doing is because I've just continued down one road, and I haven't let anything sort of stray me from that system and stray me from that road. It's that one path. This is what I feel comfortable with. This is what gives me that confidence, and I'm going down that path, and I'm living and dying by that path. And, I think over time you need to refine that path, right? So a brick falls out of the path. Let's patch it back in, right? Let's do something and refine it to make sure we're always staying up to date with market conditions, right? So we've known recently market sideways action. Hard to say, that the break and retest has been fantastic in sideways action, right? It hasn't been a great environment for some of those setups. So we're refining constantly. We're making sure we're in the right conditions for it. But there's no way to get to that point, D, if we're watching 1,000 different things, right? We have to be watching that one system, and refining that one thing that we're going to be looking for every day. Because you probably know from watching me trade, right? I look for the same thing every day. Every day. And there's no divergence. There's no like, oh, maybe today I'm going to look for something different. No, it's break and retest, Previous day high, previous day low. Those are the best setups. Maybe there's a break and retest of a key level that I have set up, right? But that's it. Those are the only things I'm trading every day. And whether it works or not, right? I can't allow a loss today make me then say, oh, break and retest is shit. I'm not going to trade this anymore, right?
Yeah.
It's just got to be understood that sometimes it plays, sometimes it doesn't. But I think the best, last piece of advice would be you have to find the confidence that what you're trading does provide opportunities. Once you see it, right? And once you can see like, wow, that was a great opportunity using this system or this strategy, or let's say the entry model, the break and retest. Once you start to see it consistently, then you start to open your eyes to, okay, I know this works. Now let me just lock in on this and let me become a master at finding those setups on the intraday basis.
Yeah. And then I know it doesn't happen often, but how do you handle, or how do you, because we as traders, I mean, we like to trade, obviously, and you mentally, you kind of, every day is like a new day, and you're like, okay, you just think, okay, there's going to be a trade today. Mm-hmm. And then, so how do you kind of stay patient or handle when the setup just doesn't come, or if it doesn't work out, you just kind of have to realize, you just have to tell yourself up front that, hey, those days are going to come, and just be good with it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think after years, I think experience helps there, D, because if I lose on a trade today, then I think back to the last whatever amount of years, and I know, okay, I know that what I look for and what I've been doing works. That's not in question, right?
Yeah.
And it's not in question that the break and retest sets up all the time, and you'll see these retest longs, retest shorts set up on the intraday basis, right? So that's not in question. Once we can understand that that is not in question, then we need to understand that if it doesn't work one day, or we don't trade it correctly, right? A lot of the time it's actually sort of user error. So maybe, you looked for a retest long while the market was rejecting a key level, right? So you can say to yourself, hey, I looked for a retest long, but that probably wasn't a good long opportunity because the NASDAQ was rejecting key supply, right? And so, like, for example, let's use the NASDAQ again today. There was some reasons to look long today off these lows, but once you hit this high today, both times, double top high, once you got to this high today, you had to not look for longs. It was as soon as it got to this high, the system, your strategy needs to say, okay, if I'm going to long this market today, it's either going to be down at this low, looking for a reversal back to this high, back into this rejection point. And once it gets to that point, right, I need to back off this trade. So, you saw today Amazon was our trade. We had a break and retest long here. We longed off the retest of this level. And I got out of that trade as soon as the NASDAQ started to reject that level again. So I got in this trade here today. We had a long above these highs. We longed the break and retest right here, break, retest, long. But I exited that trade here because I saw that the NASDAQ and the SPY were starting to reject our key supply level, right? So that's part of my system. That's part of my strategy is like, hey, I'll take that long, but if the market is failing a key level, then I need to back off that because, well, if that fails, then it could drive everything lower with it. And that's, what ends up happening on Amazon today. It did not last. It did not hold. It held up for a little bit, but eventually failed back under. And the rejections on the market sort of made that retest long become a very temporary trade. And those are just those refinements that you build over time and saying, these criteria need to be met for me to take a trade. And if those criteria are not met, then I will not take a trade, or I will, maybe back off my trade or exit my trade. But I think the discipline part, like you mentioned, to not take a trade if it's not there, or, know when to end, know when to stop. That's a little bit of a separate, again, that's not really the break and retest strategy, right? D, like the break and retest strategy is not a strategy that has anything to do with when do you exit? When do you stop trading? When do you walk away for the day, right? Those are that's your strategy, but that's your mental edge. That's your psychology. That's your emotional control. That's all separate than the break and retest. The break and retest, once again, it's just an entry model. That's all it is.
Right.
How do I find my entry point? The break and retest. But all those other things, that's all your edge. That is your edge. Your edge is not just the break and retest. Your edge is my edge is good because I can control my emotions, right? My edge is good because I can know when to stop. I can know when to exit. I know when to hold winners. I know when to not hold winners. These are all refinements that take years. That's not an overnight thing, right? That, people try to shortcut. People try to, make it work overnight. It's not going to happen. But the only way to build upon those steps, right, and build upon that foundation and learn all these things is to streamline what you're looking for every day so you can start to stack, right? So, okay, now that I know I'm looking for this to get an entry point, now let me start building upon this and let me start building my foundation. But if we can't stick to one thing, then how do we start to grow as a trader, right?
Right.
We're like all over the place all the time, and trading, without trading as it is a wild and emotional thing. So we need to figure out how to sort of fine tune what we're looking for. We can't look for everything on the charts. We can only look for a certain criteria and a certain thing. And if you start eliminating all that noise and only focus on a certain thing every day, I think you can start to become a better trader, because you're just not, your brain is not being pulled in 1,000 different directions every minute of the day.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, great advice, Vince. I appreciate it.
You got it, man. Hopefully that answers some of your questions tonight.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, just a lot of these things you kind of know and kind of figure out as you self-analyze, but it's always good, to kind of hear from somebody else, who's gone through it and is also a great trader like yourself. Just say, hey, here's what you need to do.
Yeah, yeah. I would just say
instead of me trying to talk myself into it, it's someone like you telling me, hey, here's what you got to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would just say before you go, just find that one thing that you're going to start focusing on and intensely focus to it. And, try to make it work. If you feel like after a solid effort of, you need to put in a solid effort to refine that one thing. And maybe there's still reason to look for other ways to trade if it's not working for you, but you got to give it a real college, as they say, you got to give it the old college try, right? You got to really give it a shot. And stay locked in on it.
Yeah, and give it a fair shot and give it time, knowing that
Absolutely.
every single day isn't going to be a home run.
Absolutely.
And, but if it is a valid strategy that has an edge, then it's going to work. It's just a matter of
refining it.
Refining it, and if it works, 8 days out of 10, that's great.
Right. Exactly.
So
exactly. All right, D. Appreciate it, man.
Well, yeah. Great to talk to you, Vince.
You too. Have a great night.
Thanks. You too. All right. Bye.
All right. All went a little long, but that's okay. I think that was valuable. 20 minutes. That was I think that might have been the longest call we've had. Appreciate you calling in, D. Yeah, guys. I think it's it's very difficult for newer traders to understand maybe like the paths, right, and like the different buckets. Everyone thinks that my strategy, let's say we're talking about me, right? Desi trades the break and retest. Okay, great. The break and retest is, like I talked to D about, it's just the reason I enter. There's more layers to it than that. It's how do I know how to hold trades, right? How do I know when to exit? I'm, watching the NASDAQ and ES with it, right? Sort of the management of the trade. How do I know when to get away from the charts, right? How do I know how to feel myself going on tilt? Or how do I know how to control myself from going on tilt? All these things that are super important, that's not the break and retest strategy. That's all just refinement of your edge and control as a trader. This stuff takes time. It's not overnight. But I think, important to stay focused on. Go ahead, Nick.
All right, Ben, I got a good one here.
Okay.
Chef Joe.
Chef Joe.
He wants to talk to you maybe about some larger time frames, but also just talk. Say thanks for
Yeah.
all the time that you guys have been together. So
All
I'm
right.
gonna patch him in, okay?
Let's do it. We got Chef Joe on the mic. Unbelievable. This is a long overdue conversation. And the myth, the legend.
What's up, Vince? How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. How are you? Long overdue,
I'm
huh?
good. Yeah, definitely. It's it's been a long time, but I finally wanted to get through and just say thank you and just ask you, basically a couple of questions, but I wanted to talk to you about some of the things that people keep asking me about, and then it harkens back to you basically training me for so many years, man. I just got to say thank you.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't be in this spot without you, and you're just, learning everything from you and then putting my own spin on some stuff and just committing to it every day. So
I think the key word there, Chef, to start it off is putting your own spin on stuff, right? I think a lot of people need to understand that what you learn from me is not the end all be all. There has to be personal spins and personal touches to benefit, and to fit into your lifestyle, right? Like I know you're, a full-time job, and there's some things you needed to change to make it work for you.
Yeah, there's no doubt that the challenge for me, obviously, this, I'm working, roughly 60 to 65 hours a week, and it becomes a bigger thing for me because, just like everybody constantly always says that, when they're working, how does everybody do this 9 to 5, and how do you do this and how do you do that? My day starts at 4 a.m. I have my alarm clock set, and it starts from there every single day. It's like clockwork, and I'm just committed to it. If you commit yourself to it and put your strategy to it, I don't know how to stress it to you that what you have done for the community, basically in a whole, and what you've done for people like me. When I came into this, no joking around, 4 years ago, I guess we kind of hooked up, I guess.
4, almost 5, probably.
What works, it's just so long, but what works is you have to, I don't know how to really say this to make everybody kind of like make it work for them, but for me, you have to just put yourself into the commitment of knowing that, you're working full time, but you got to just be able to just pound it out every day. Take your information and, obviously make it your own. But for me, I just had to make sure in the beginning that the system worked. I sat from afar, looked at it, and I'm like, wait a minute. I'm losing money every single day. I don't understand how I'm doing this. I'm playing options. I had no clue what I was doing, and then all of a sudden I was obviously locked into you, and I'm like, wait a minute. So the market moves this way and the market reacts this way. And then you got to go into the longer term, because my call tonight was basically about the longer time frames and how it's basically changed my life. No joking around, because I set alarms every single morning and set alerts every single morning from 8 a.m. all the way through to the rest of my day. And I set my phone to it. My phone's attached to my hip. And every time the alarm comes off, I set it before, basically like, let's say 10 a.m., I know news drops. I set it for, 9:55, and I'm looking and I'm realizing, okay, I'm not taking a trade until this news drops every day or after that, 11:30 or 12 o'clock. But you got to stay committed to it. And I think what you did was, it's discipline. And you taught us that of doing that. And I guess the thing that I didn't understand was, when should I get in and if I should hold? And that's where, like, sometimes we all get confused. Like, some guys ask, how did you pick out this option chain? I never knew options until I found you, until I really kind of like figured it all out on my own. And then my biggest trade obviously was Tesla from years ago. Was the biggest thing that I ever did in my life. And the thing is, though, daily is the time frames I hold dear to me is that the longer ones, everybody says, well, how did you make so much off it? How did you do this or how did you do that? I said, well, I just follow his break and retest strategy. I look at it and I go, you know what? I could see that obviously the time frames are showing me whether there's a lot of buyers or whether there's a lot of sellers. And if the buyers are there, obviously the candles and the wicks are going to be important. But you've obviously shown me that the supply part of it, I wasn't realizing that. And I'm thinking to myself, well, the buyers are stepping up, but it's going into the supply. Maybe I shouldn't take the trade.
Yeah.
But then I'm trying to think to myself, like you say it all the time, do you wait before it breaks, or should you get in beforehand? And it's instilled in my brain to just wait for that break, test it again, see if the buyers step up, and that's how you've taught us. And I just wanted to say thank you. And you know, it's changed me dramatically, though.
So you're focusing on the longer time frames pretty much every day, right? Because you're having to sort of slow down your positions. You can't really be managing them minute by minute, correct?
Yeah, I can't. I have no, you know, in the middle of cooking or doing whatever I'm doing on a daily basis, it's virtually impossible for me to be able to watch it all the time. I mean, I have my moments where I'm constantly watching. I have it set up on my station, or I'm looking at it from a few feet away from me. But if I take a trade, and it's no joke, I take it and I sit there and I just forget about it. Like, I'll take it. I know that like the conviction's so good to where you've taught us, like, if I'm taking SPX puts or calls or whatever, you've taught me that part of it where, you know, it just take the trade, but you're going to see it, the demand, if you take it right then and there, stick with the longer term time frame, because otherwise you're just going to get out in 2 seconds, and it's just it's not worth it. You're not making any money.
How do you
For
size
me, it's a little
these
different.
positions?
What's that?
How do you size the positions? Do you size lighter so that, you know, obviously some of the volatility doesn't really scare you out of them?
Yeah, I wait. I generally wait. See, right now, because of the way, obviously, the way that Trump is right now, it's that it makes it more difficult for me to really size anything, because I've seen just over the past few days that a lot of the wicks are being sold into, and I'm like, there's no way I'm holding these anymore. I can't do it, because you wind up getting crushed. So there's no real conviction yet. You know, everybody's still worried and whatnot. But before, I would just hold it. I would just be like, all right, 30-minute candle looks great. Next 30-minute candle looks great. You know, it's holding. There's a lot of buyers stepping in, and that's how I've kind of.
So you watch it on like the 30-minute on the intraday. You're monitoring it on a higher time frame as well.
Oh yeah. If it's not the 30, I'll watch the hourly. And
so
I look for that. Yeah, I'm not worried about anything. I'm just looking for the support. Is there buyers there, you know, or is there sellers there? And that's exactly what happened on Meta the other day. It was perfect. You know, I was searching for a chain that worked for me. I'm like, you know what? I hate trading Meta, but I'm willing to throw $100. All right, I'll buy 5 of them. You know, and I bought the puts, and it was 51 cents, and I sold them at $9.10. I'm like, if I didn't hold them, if I didn't hold them, and I'm like thinking to myself, there's bad news coming out, I'm just going to let it fly. You know, you know, how much is it going to really cost me? You know, so I didn't look at it that way.
I think a lot of people would do a lot better, Chef, if I think it's actually a really good point. Like, I even maybe, you know, honestly, I even think myself sometimes, right? Like, maybe, you know, watching that 30-minute on the intraday instead of a 2-minute or a 5-minute would keep a lot of people in a lot of trades that could make a big difference, right? Like, a meta from 50 cents to $9 is that's more than probably most people make in, you know, in a month trading on a short-term time frame and getting faked out left and right. And all it takes is let me just watch the 30-minute, let me relax, let me size comfortably, and let this thing move. And, you know, I envy that, to be honest, Chef. Sometimes I wish I was able to be more like you in that sense. Because I bet you, I mean, I guarantee you that there'd be some trades out there that would have been massive, massive, massive trades if I maybe didn't get faked out on a 2-minute or didn't get faked out on a 5-minute. And I was just like, hey, this is the 30-minute. I'm not going to get scared out of this position. As long as that 30-minute still looks in my direction, I'm holding this trade. And you know, that's great advice to some people out there.
You know what it is, because just like you said, it's the 30-minute, but within that 30 minutes, you're going to have some buyers in there somewhere along the line. You know, the candle's going to go green for 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever. Okay, great. But the overall thought of me doing it is there are a lot of sellers within this candle that's holding in the 30 minutes. And if it goes, you know, 8, 9, 10 points, to the downside, I'm like, why am I selling it? I'll hold it, and then I set my alarms for the next 30 minutes. And this is how, like, I'm an anal as it is, but I set it that way. I'll think about it. Okay, an hour from now, I'm setting an alarm clock for 45 minutes from now, and I'm going to look at it again and think to myself, all right, if I get beat out, it's going to be because there was some kind of news, there was something that was dramatic that really happened. But if the market is selling off, and if I'm in this, I could see this thing really getting down, because you had shown us, there's a gap to be filled, or there's a way that's going to hit anywhere between 550 was my goal. And I'm looking at it, I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I'm just going to set it and forget it. Actually, I took the trade, and if I didn't watch what you were showing in the morning, I'm like, you know what? The shoot or shoot, as we always say. I constantly think of it that way.
So
and then
you're
I
just
walk
very
away
selective. From it. You're selective with your trades.
Yeah.
When you see something that you think has continuation, you trust it. You take it on the 30. You trust it. You intensely, like, you actually trust it. Some people say they trust it. You actually trust it, and you let it play, and you wait for targets. Right. That's pretty much it. You're setting a trade up. You have a clear thing that you're looking for. You have a clear target, and you're either getting taken out because, like you said, the 30-minute flips like crazy because of some news or some crazy catalyst, or the trade hits your target and you're just chilling.
Yeah, and that's the only way that I've learned to make it a little bit more than what I used to, because I used to just get so freaked out after like 5 minutes. And I'm like, oh my God, it's gonna go against me. It's gonna go against me. And then I realized there's a lot more sellers in here than there is buyers. Yeah, there's a couple of buyers, but everybody's getting overwhelmed.
I think that's the only way to do it with your personal life and what you do. And I think that is basically you just understanding that and putting your own touch on it, which is just, I mean, it's awesome. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I see a bunch of people in the chat saying how helpful this is. So it's great. A lot of people can open their eyes to that.
And the best part is, and I know that people do ask a lot too, is that about the chain. What chain are you buying, and what what price are you looking at? Because I do look at a lot of it too. Because if you're buying the wrong chain, I mean, I know we don't really talk about it that much, like on the channel and stuff like that. A lot of people don't realize if you're buying the wrong chain, your move is going to cost you dramatically. Like you could buy instead of buying something at, like, let's call it 550, right? We're just talking about it again. And you bought the 562s, so you may not realize it, but that's not a chain that everybody's buying. That's not something that's really like,
has a lot of volume in it.
A lot of volume in it. So you got to really look at the open interest. You got to look at all those little things. And the Greeks are really important. I don't understand them that well, but I understand them really good
you don't need to understand the inner workings. Yeah, you don't got to understand the inner workings of it all. You just need to understand that this is a high open interest. People are buying this. It's going to flow. It's going to move with the market. You can't be buying, low open interest and too far out of the money contracts. That's really all you have to understand.
Correct. Yeah, and that's where everybody gets they get crushed because you're buying it 20, 30 points out of the out of the money. And then you're sitting there going, well, why, if it's coming, it's still going in your favor, but you're still losing money. And then you only got like 1 day left on the contract. Right. What are you doing? Yeah, so you really got to study it a little bit more,
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah, this is, man, what a great call.
It's worked out.
That's awesome,
listen, I'm not kidding when I say this. At some point, we're all going to get together. You've changed everything from my standpoint, as far as like my, how do I say it, like my portfolio. And you've seen it. I've talked about it so many times. And it's the only thing that really helped me dramatically was the Tesla trade. And then from there, it was just the confidence and then being able to really blow it up. But I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, because you really did it for me, and one day I'm going to say thank you to you.
You got it, man. And I think the key takeaway here is that you clearly have a system down that you follow every day. And I think that in itself, to you people watching, is important to understand, because he knows what he's going to do. He knows what he's looking for. There's no questions. There's no concerns. There's no, oh my, maybe this, maybe that. This is what I'm doing. I have the same system every day, and I'm going to follow this, and I'm going to believe in it. And that in itself is massively important, because confidence is everything when you enter a position.
Yeah.
the confidence for you to hold meta versus not being confident is the difference in a 51 cent to $9 option contract. That is
Right.
basically 1,000%.
And look at
That's
where the
difference.
trade was in the beginning of it, and then thinking
Right.
about, like, wait a minute, how am I going to get this, like, 30 or 40 points out of the the realm of possibility? But looking at the chain and how it was actually moving, and I'm like, wait a minute, I only got one more day left. I think I bought it on a Thursday. And I'm like, I got one more day left. Should I do this or should I not? And I was just like looking at everything in total, and I said, you know what, I'm doing it. And I just did it, and it worked, and I kind of see that happening. But right now, I'm a little skittish on the market. I mean, obviously everybody is. I'm not really taking any massive trades or anything at all right now because it's just
same.
every time you look at it, every pop is being sold into. There's just nothing holding. It's just
there's nothing wrong with being a little light-sized right now. As you've seen, I have been very light-sized, and there's nothing wrong with it, man. Don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, the Timmies and Jimmies, I'm not even worried about those dudes, man. they come every day for us, you know what I mean? And it's just it's unbelievable. These guys, they just, why are you not sizing up? Well, dude, I'm not losing all my money. Are you that
right?
stupid?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
just
exactly.
So dumb. So,
I
but
appreciate
listen, brother,
man.
I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Again, you changed my life, man. A couple of years ago, I had no strategy at all, and finally something worked, and I'll go to my grave that way. So
that's awesome, man. I hope to see you this summer. I'm definitely gonna be up there in Jersey, maybe July. So we'll make something
absolutely,
work.
Absolutely.
All right, Chef. Appreciate it, man. Have
you
a great
got it,
night.
buddy. You too, man. You too.
Peace.
All right.
Man, Chef Joe. I got goosebumps. I got goosebumps. Don't make me cry on live stream, huh? What a guy. What an incredible guy. That's awesome. What a story. What a story. That's what Trader Hotline's all about. Hearing the stories of other people and seeing what worked for them and what works for them and how that can be, used maybe for your advice, and how maybe you take something away from tonight's call with Chef and say, hey, maybe I need to zoom out, right? Maybe I need to get on the higher time frames. Maybe I need to figure out what it is that I'm going to, tailor to my own life and tailor to my situation. Again, what I teach is something that needs to be perfected for your own system, right? This is what works for me. It fits my style because I have the liberty to be on my computer from 9 to 12 o'clock. I have the attention span and I have the dedication and the confidence in what I'm doing to make it work. But that doesn't mean that everyone's going to have the ability to make it work, and I think, I think Chef, what he did is he took a piece of what I taught. He took a piece of my education that I provide, and he put his own flair on it. He made it work for him, and that's what it's all about. I mean, that's just showing dedication and commitment to, making this work. So I just think that's quite nice. Man, I'm tempted to just call it there tonight. Nick, I don't know if you have a bunch lined up, but it's 8:50. I think that was a pretty awesome call with Chef and with D. I know they went a little bit longer, but I think we got some value out of tonight. So, Nick, what do you think? Do we just call it here? Let me see what Nick has to say about his...
Up to you. I didn't call anyone. We do have a couple in here, but I would love for them to call back next week if you want to call it. Totally up to you. All
right. Yeah, I think we call it there, guys, and I think we save. If you guys did call in tonight and you didn't get picked up, make sure to call in next week. We're gonna get through everyone eventually, as we continue to do these live streams. But yeah, a valuable one, a wholesome one tonight. Definitely a touching one that I'll be thinking about all night and probably tomorrow morning. So I appreciate it. Thank you guys for being here. Thanks for stopping by. Thank you to Chef and D for calling in. And that is a show, Trader Hotline. Make sure to show up next week, Monday, 8 p.m. And I will see you guys. I'll see you guys then. Peace and love.